Howdy partners! You may have seen loads of videos about the team of the season, but how about the most underrated Premier League team of the season? All the most underrated players, not rated, not overrated, most underrated. Well, what we're going to do is go through some of the players who are the most underrated of the season, this season that's just happened, and to do that I am joined by Dr. Mark Carey, and he's trapped inside the scattergram!
Hey JJ.
You got a little song, right? He's got his little song.
Mark Carey is trapped inside the scattergram. Mark Carey is trapped inside the scattergram. A scattergram is a graphic representation of points referencing two variables.
Yes!
I forgot that I'm being recorded.
It's been such a long time since Mark was trapped inside some sort of two-dimensional world. Is it 2D in there, or what dimension are you in?
Yeah, there's different rooms. Some are 2D, some are not. Some are scattergrams, some are tables, some are bar charts.
Do some have televisions inside them?
We'll go through all of them today.
So you've chosen the players that we're going to do this on based on their numbers, because that's how you find little hidden gems.
Yeah, all on numbers. Some of them people will agree with, some of them people won't, but that's all part of the debate. But we're going to go through why some of the numbers are strong for each of the players we're going to go through.
Well, let's start off with goalkeepers. Now, the goalkeeper, this one here is Bernd Leno of Fulham. Please tell me why he is the most underrated goalkeeper of the season.
Well, specifically from a shot-stopping perspective only here, we're going to look at goals prevented, which is something we use quite widely in terms of looking at the difference between the number of goals that a goalkeeper has conceded and how many they maybe should have conceded based on the quality of shots that they've faced. And then the difference between that, if there's a positive difference between that, it shows that the goalkeeper's had a good shot-stopping season. And as you can see here, there's no one better in the Premier League who's had a shot-stopping season quite to the extent that Leno has. He's saved nearly 12 goals more than he should have based on the quality of shots that he's faced.
One of the many reasons perhaps that Fulham are perceived to have overachieved this season.
Yeah, they've overperformed from a defensive perspective and attacking perspective, which is why they've done so well this season.
Well, defence is very important, and that's why we're going to now look at the most underrated defenders. Here's the back four. Now, let's start with the centre-back, Thiago Silva and Sven Botman. Tell me why they're there.
Well, first of all, it's really hard to look at defensive contribution from centre-backs using data. But what I thought, if we're going to do that, we're going to look at two things. One is their aerial win rate along the x-axis here. Simply, how often do they win a header when they go up for them? And on the y-axis here, their true tackle win rate. Now, this is called true tackle win rate because it accounts for more. Rather than just their tackle win rate, it accounts for fouls committed and challenges lost as well. So it's a bit of a wider remit to say when they put a foot in, how often do they win the ball? So we've got along the y-axis, aerial win rate along the x-axis, and essentially those who are on the far side are those that we're going to focus on here.
Yes.
And as you can see, we've got Ethan Pinnock as well, which is very interesting on the far side.
He's on our bench, yes.
He's on our bench, with good reason, as you can see from the numbers. But Sven Botman and Thiago Silva are both two players who profile really well in their win rate on both of those.
Now, Botman I can get behind because Botman, part of that Newcastle defence that wasn't underrated, was probably rated because they are the second best or the best defensive record in the league this season. So that's good, obviously. And Botman, an enormous part of that is the left-sided, kind of ball-playing, big, tall centre-back. That's what you want. But Thiago Silva is part of a dreadful Chelsea team.
True, however, I think that up until maybe the final 4 or 5 games of the season, Chelsea's expected goals against numbers across the whole league were actually probably the 4th or 5th best. So it wasn't necessarily that Chelsea were kind of weak from a defensive perspective, they were just really struggling to score goals and actually convert the chances they had. Thiago Silva was probably one of maybe 2 players in the Chelsea team who could actually say that they had an okay season. Probably Kepa, I'd maybe argue as well. Other than that, Chelsea have had a shocker of a season. But every time Thiago Silva does play, he does clearly win all of his duels. He's protected a little bit at times because he's often playing in a back 3. Here, we're playing him in a back 2. He might be a little bit more exposed if he were to actually play this team. But I do think he's actually come out with some credit this season because he's a class act.
Where does he keep his jewels?
Keep his jewels in the scattergram.
Now, in our actual team of the season video, which you may already have seen, I think me and John both had players like Kieran Trippier were there, but Mark has picked out Alex Marino of Aston Villa and Soufal of West Ham, whose name I have forgotten.
Vladimir,
thank you, yes.
Vladimir Soufal, I've kind of ignored anything from a defensive perspective for the fullbacks because the modern day fullback, it is all about getting forward and creating. And one thing which you'll see throughout all of these players that we're choosing is that I've tried to account for the opportunity to do a certain action rather than just who does it the most, because often then the best players or the players who play for the best teams will just come to the top.
Right.
So what I've done here is look at expected assists per 100 touches. So when everyone has the same opportunity to create, then how often do they create? And at the top, we've got Aston Villa's Alex Moreno, which I thought was really interesting to show just how much he does look to deliver the ball as soon as he has the opportunity to.
Yeah, a huge part of that team now, because that's huge numbers. And then Soufal, obviously, the reason we picked him is because when you go down that list, it's all left backs for some reason.
Yeah, it's really left back heavy. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I think, Moreno's an interesting one because he arrives onto the play really well. He doesn't necessarily have too many touches as a left back, but then he just makes those runs, darting in behind and then crosses it first time. I think Soufal is kind of similar as a team, West Ham. I think they have the fewest passes per cross of any Premier League team this season, so it shows just how much their sort of propensity to get the ball wide and cross is just part of the style that they have, and Soufal is obviously key to that.
And Soufal as well, it's not just that he's hitting crosses from he's not just an overlapping fullback getting to these sorts of areas to put the ball in the box. Loads of his crosses are coming from really deep, they're a very crossy team, West Ham, aren't they? So he's playing crosses from here as well as these kind of classic fullback ones, but there's an awful lot focused from here. I guess that's the tactical part of it. But then this metric doesn't just focus on that, it just shows how it makes him stand out, right?
He does, yeah, but it does kind of link to your point there where it's at the soonest opportunity to create and get a cross in, which players are doing that the most. And the fact that Soufal is in the top list suggests that he is looking to create the soonest opportunity from those positions that you're showing.
Get it in the box and you might score. And then to assist that, what you need is midfielders. Now in our midfield, there's a controversial player. Now João Palhinha is one of the stars of the season perhaps, so I don't know if he should be in here. He's Fulham's, I'd say, most important player. Bernd Leno obviously helps him overperform. Mitrovic up front, another one who couldn't be underrated because he's basically done kind of what you'd hope him to do, I would say. Now Palhinha finishes top on all sorts of metrics like interceptions, tackles, things like that. How do you feel if I take him out and put in another midfielder? How do you feel about that?
I would be fine with it. Before you do though, I just want to kind of point just how much Palhinha has put a foot in, basically. This looks at the true tackles per 1,000 opponent touches. So again, accounting for the opportunity to make a challenge and stick a foot in, Palhinha comes out of top from any central or defensive midfielder. So it shows just how much he is that destructive defensive midfielder for Fulham and just hoovers up any opportunity to stick a foot in.
But he has been in some team of the seasons, haven't he? So
we can debate. I mean, I've watched him live as well, and you just think how does he just cover so much ground? He's a fantastic player and probably going to be getting a move.
I'm still not convinced that he's not rated. So let's move on to the other players. Joe Willock, really important for Newcastle this season. I think he comes in there because some of these numbers show he's great. But first of all, let's look at Curtis Jones, because he is also in your scattergram there. What for?
He's right near the top as well in terms of his propensity to stick a foot in terms of the true tackles that he at least attempts, which shows, I think it's really interesting because he's known to be a really good attacking player. He often drifts out onto the left-hand side, and for the purpose of this, we've maybe put him on the right, that's fine. But he's underrated, I think, in how strong he is defensively, out of possession. And Liverpool's best run of form has been when he's been in the team. And I think that his propensity to stick a foot in has been key to Jurgen Klopp's midfield.
Well, that's the thing that's really been missing from Liverpool this season is winning the ball back, and it's the midfield seems a bit bypassed a lot of the time. Maybe we'll see Jones play a lot more next season, depending on who Liverpool sign, but that's kind of what it does. You get that ball-winning mentality in midfield, and the energy, and then the quality of touch and pass and vision. Great player, Curtis Jones. Yeah. That's definitely an underrated player to put in this list. One of the, I mean, there are some that are definite. Palhinha, I'm not sure about, definitely here. But now please justify Joe Willock.
Well, even Joe Willock, there could be an argument that he's not underrated because he has had such a really strong season. But what I've got here is another scattergram whereby, again, it's accounting for the opportunity. So we've got the share of carries that a player makes that are progressive, so how much they are looking to move it forward. And along the x-axis, we've got the share of passes that are made that are progressive. So same thing, but just rather than carries, we've got passes. And again, if you're kind of on the far right-hand side, you're doing a lot of both. Again, given the opportunity.
The upper right-hand side or just
the upper right-hand side, and if you can see on this far side, Joe Willock is right on above average on both of them. Again, when all players are given the same opportunity to make a pass, to do a carry, how often are they actually progressing the ball forward? And he's looking to go forward at the soonest opportunity with both his passes and his carries, which is really strong.
And now we're on to our forwards, who are the ones who score the goals and create lots of chances. And what we've got here is Michael Olise of Crystal Palace, who I think is maybe on the verge of being rated, so we're really pushing the edge of the limits of what we're doing with this. And Morgan Gibbs-White, who's played as mostly as a 10 or part of 2 10s for Nottingham Forest this season, but really important. And he has, I can tell you officially, 8 assists and 5 goals this season, which is very good for Nottingham Forest and one of the main reasons they stayed up. So we justify him being there, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's a creative hub. I think Elise as well has just been fantastic. And we'll look into the visualization a bit because it all looks at open play. Elise is a fantastic set piece taker, but in terms of his creative numbers, he's the first Crystal Palace player in the Premier League history to have 10 assists or more, which shows just how creative he has been. And
very nice.
They've got some fantastic players. We know Crystal Palace, but Elise has been a massive central hub to that. So kind of focusing on that, if you look at it, you've got Kevin De Bruyne and Bruno Fernandes as the top two here. This is the share of team passes into the penalty area. So how often, again, as a percentage of the whole team, the player kind of has the responsibility to get the ball into dangerous areas. And it makes sense that Kevin De Bruyne is the highest for Manchester City, Bruno Fernandes for Manchester United. Elise is third on that list, which shows just how much responsibility he has in being creative. And this is open play, as I say. So yes, he's really good as a set piece taker, but at the soonest opportunity, he's another one who's just going to get it onto his left foot and whip a really dangerous ball to the back post.
Relevant as well to a lot of the other players we've got here, because as you can see, we've got Kieran Trippier, who's not underrated, so he can't possibly go in. He's there. Alex Iwobi we maybe could have put in, but I feel like although he gets good numbers, I still feel like there's something not quite there. He's had a decent season in midfield, but is he underrated? I think he goes up and down. I think people know Alex Iwobi by now. He's
not consistent enough, yeah.
Yeah, but a really good one to pull in here is Alex Marino, who is obviously one of our fullbacks for defensive numbers or actions. I can't remember what the one was, but here we go with him being really creative in this part of the team. And we've got Pascal Gross as well on the bench, who also appears in this chart here.
And Morgan Gibbs-White in the top list as well. So it goes to your point of just how creative he is and how much he takes on that responsibility to be creative for his team.
And last one on there I can see is James Maddison, who has finished the season with an outstanding number of assists and goals. I think it's 10 and 9 he's got this season in whichever order Don decides to edit in this edit. And so a lovely season for James Maddison and all involved. And of course, that leaves us one player on the pitch. And as you can probably see from this data that Mark's about to show you, it's Callum Wilson.
So this one I think is really fun because I've got on the y-axis the shots per 100 touches. So again, the inclination for a player to shoot with the touches he has. So who is the most out and out striker, as I say, and XG per shot on the x-axis. So the average quality of a shot, given shot that a player takes. And again, far right hand side, you've got the robot boy, Erling Haaland, who takes really high quality shots and is just every opportunity he has to shoot, he's going to shoot. One touch finishes, that's what he's all about. The player closest to that, very, very similar, is Newcastle's Callum Wilson. And I looked into the numbers on this and he makes the fewest passes per 90 of any forward in the Premier League. So it shows that he's not interested in getting involved in the build-up at all. He is just wanting to score a goal. And I think he's had his best goal-scoring season in the Premier League across his whole career. So he's just getting into really high quality positions, opportunities to score, and he's just making the most of the touches he has.
So he's not a team player, but he is good for the team. Yes?
I think so, yeah. I think this is the good thing about creating this team of whether it is your best 11 or your 11 best. And I think that it's working the dynamic out with the whole team versus having good individual players.
Well, let me just summarise the other players we've not talked about. So that's our 11 and most underrated according to data. So that's what scouts would look at and be like, this guy's really good, did you not know? So then we've got Granit Xhaka, had a great season for Arsenal, 7 goals, I think 7 assists. Obviously really important to their title push. I think he goes under as being underrated. There was a time during the season where he was then being rated. He's always been a great player. This season, probably his best season for Arsenal. Ethan Pinnock we talked about with his numbers earlier on in the centre-back part. Solly March, multi-positional, not multi-dimensional like yourself, trapped in the scattergram and bar chart. And then the last player we've got here is Dan Burn. Dan Burn is like 6'7". I think he can...
Taller than me.
Yeah, he can walk over mountains and buildings, much like Mark Carey. But really important for Newcastle, and maybe numbers won't show it. What these data nerds don't see is the character. You can't measure character, can you?
Character per 90.
Yeah, character per 90, he'd be well up here, because what you need is players who bring the team together, give you that determination, that spirit, that fightingness. That doesn't exist in data, does it? Or does it?
I wish I could find that, but unfortunately it doesn't exist at the moment.
Well, that's our team of the season, who the most underrated players are. Hopefully when we come back with Mark, he'll have worked out how to measure who the best character is.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.